Good morning and welcome to Pittsburgh City Council's Committee on Hearings. I'm Council President Teresa Kell Smith, and I'm joined by Councilwoman Barbara Warwick, and I anticipate we will soon be joined by some other additional members. Madam Clerk, will you please read the purpose of the interviews?
I'm to read all three.
Read the first one we're going to start with, yes, please.
Bill 2034, resolution appointing Philip Wu as a member of the Planning Commission with a term to expire October 1st, 2029.
Thank you, and good afternoon, good morning, and do you want to give a little synopsis about what you think you might bring to the table or anything you think might be important for the public to hear about your service?
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm Philip Wu. I am a urban planner. I've lived in Pittsburgh since 2011, and I previously worked for Department of City Planning from 2020 to 2022. So I've been part of a transition of administrations, and I've seen kind of the how things have worked during COVID and after COVID, and yeah, I bring 9 years of experience in planning. I currently work for a firm called SGA, and we work mostly on brownfields projects throughout the country, federal projects, EPA, etc. In the past, I've also done a lot of work in Western PA on zoning ordinances and comprehensive plans. Again, I worked for the city. I was the planner for some of the East End neighborhoods. So Bloomfield, Friendship, Garfield, Highland Park, Larmer, East Liberty, and Morningside. So yeah, I feel like I can offer some, ideas and direction in terms of how the zoning code can be updated to better reflect how, the needs for affordable housing, the needs for more, green space, and I'm very thankful for the appointment by the mayor's office and the administration, and I'm very happy to serve.
Thank you, and Councilwoman Warwick.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, thanks for joining and for your willingness to do this job, which is it's always good when folks like yourself step up. I will say your resume, I mean, in terms of just qualifications for a seat on the commission, that seems fairly clear. So I guess I wanted to ask you, since there is sort of, zoning is sort of the hot topic right now. Also the citywide the comprehensive plan. And there's sort of a kind of a back and forth, in terms of modernizing the zoning code, this sort of, I don't want to say they're two distinct camps, but there's over here, which is just build everything, just whatever, just build as much housing as you can, and that'll kind of trickle down and result in affordability. And then there's, on the opposite end, fairly significant restrictions on what you can build or what you have to build in addition to, et cetera, et cetera. And I guess I'd be curious about your thoughts on where, on how all that should sort of look going forward in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, well, I think we need kind of a balanced approach. So I know some cities have looked at eliminating single-family detached zoning. That's not, something that we necessarily need to do here, but we could look at potentially, doing a study or looking at densities of existing like R1D, very high or high districts, and maybe those can become R1A. You can have attached zoning or attached dwelling units in some of those formerly R1D zones. There's also opportunity to, I know in the past there was an accessory dwelling overlay that did not get carried over. So potentially looking at changing definitions, for example. So a 2-unit or 3-unit dwelling might not necessarily mean that the units have to be in the same building. Currently, the definition is written that way. So the SP districts, I feel like those were kind of a legacy of a time when Pittsburgh was trying to attract any and all development, and developers were kind of given the opportunity to work with city planning on kind of special districts. I think there's an opportunity to maybe update the zoning code where you see less of those, and you see more of just a modernization of things. So I know height is kind of a contentious issue in the city, in certain neighborhoods, but height is something that's needed for more affordable housing, and you see in cities across the country like San Francisco where there are height limits that are preventing new housing from being constructed, and that has caused a big affordability crisis. So I think we kind of want to take some steps, but not we don't want a free for all where any and all developments can occur, because we don't want to displace people. There's obviously been a lot of gentrification in some of the neighborhoods over the past 15 years, and we want to take measured steps to increase density, increase affordability, and I think there's a balance that can be found.
Okay, and what are your thoughts? So I think we talk a lot about a housing shortage overall, when sometimes, or a lot of the time, it's not so much that there is a lack of housing. There is housing, especially at the upper, in the more expensive levels. But what we really lack is affordable family housing, so 2 to 3 bedroom units. And I still have not heard someone provide a solid answer on how to, whether that's motivate or require developers to build the type of housing that we need, not just housing, but the type of, so I mean, it's fine to do studios and 1 bedrooms, but at the end of the day, that's not what we need to keep. I mean, and that's great for new people coming in, right? Yeah, there's always going to be a flow of young people from the universities who are getting, high paying jobs at the various tech companies and whatnot that will fill, market rate studios and 1 bedrooms. But to build the housing that how do we get developers to build the housing, the 2, 3, 4 bedroom, whether that's, houses, duplexes, or apartments, that we need to keep our families here who are here now?
Yeah, I think going back to what I was saying about the R1D zones, in my experience working in city planning, there have been times where developers have wanted to build housing that, was attached in a detached zone, and they had to go through numerous procedures, including zoning board and whatnot. And I think there are neighborhoods out there, we kind of have to identify what the neighborhoods are where you're seeing the most development pressure, and also the most affordability, crisis, and look at ways to incentivize the missing middle type of housing, the 2 units, the 3 units, maybe the quadruplexes. And yeah, I think there's really, nuanced things that we can do there to incentivize that. And also, I think there's an opportunity to look at affordability, in terms of reestablishing a definition for AMI, area median income. I think currently the inclusionary zoning overlay uses a region-wide measure, and there may be opportunities to look at it more, from a neighborhood scale or from a citywide scale. But yeah, there's definitely a need for more missing middle housing, and I think looking at some of the higher density R1D districts and maybe making them R1A, maybe with overlays, for incentives for more units, something that can be looked at.
Okay, great. I don't really think that I have any other, well, I guess, do you want to speak at all to other elements of planning to, for example, transportation, green space, that type of thing? I don't know if you have any thoughts that you want to add to.
Yeah, I mean, transportation is always an issue in the city, and working with PRT, I think, is something that the city can probably do a little more of in terms of transit-oriented developments. Even some of the neighborhoods, though, like I live in Brookline, for example. There's no way to get from the neighborhood down to the T station without walking on the road. There's a station there called South Bank Station where the T and the South Busway both meet. But there's no way for people in the neighborhood to get down there. So a lot of the South Hills neighborhoods, a lot of the neighborhoods in the West End, there's gaps in sidewalks and bike paths and things like that. So I think we've done a good job with looking at transportation alternatives and multimodal transportation in the East End, and I think some of the neighborhoods and on the north side, in the South Hills and the West End would benefit from that as well.
And are there any specifics just around, and I don't have anything in mind, but any around transit-oriented develop, like what that actually means? So what that would look like in terms of our zoning code?
Yeah, so what was started in Oakland with some of those new districts, you have like I believe it's the urban employment and urban mixed use. I think some of those types of targeted districts could be something to look at for areas around transit stations, around the busway stations, and the busway stations. I know PRT has been looking at transit-oriented development for a long time around places like the Negley station, for example, and things have not really come to fruition there. So I think there are ways to look at more targeted zoning for those areas that would allow for more mixed-use housing and more development that serves transit users.
Okay, so that would be like sort of doing the upzoning type things that you're talking about.
Yeah.
In and around the transit hubs.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, and also how you would build that out. So in case of Brookline, right, I guess building around the T stop.
Yeah, even
be,
providing
right.
paths, sidewalks. So it doesn't have to be something as intricate as like a new mixed use development. Even providing sidewalks and paths for neighborhoods that are missing or that have sidewalk gaps to transit stations is they'll provide a world of difference.
Yeah. Okay, well, I don't think I have anything else. You seem as qualified as a person could possibly be for this role. So thank you. I'll hand it back to Madam
Thank you,
President.
Councilwoman. Is there anyone else on, Madam Clerk? No one yet?
No.
Okay, we're still waiting for other members to join, but we're having a pretty big meeting about the budget. So for me, I want to know, I'll ask everyone this question. Do you have any conflicts that may prevent you from making a decision, an unbiased decision, serving on the planning commission?
No, the firm that I work for, we are involved in the Cantini Mosaics relocation project. And I don't work on that side of the company, but, if there are, projects that we work on in the city, obviously I would, recuse myself from those if the decisions came down to the planning commission.
Okay. Were you part of Bike Pittsburgh at one point or something?
I was a volunteer there a long time ago.
I
didn't
vaguely,
work
that's
there.
how I think I remember you, to be honest with you, through something. But you mentioned the West End quite a few times, so I'm going to ask you about it. You mean, what part of the West End in particular? Because the West End proper has brand-new sidewalks, so I'm wondering.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah,
there-
so yeah,
is
the
there a part in
Weston
the West
Village has new sidewalks, but going up like Noblestown Road, for example.
Yeah,
and
state
that's
maintained
a s-
road.
Yeah, that's PennDOT
Yeah.
road.
Yeah,
Up by Ferrywood, some of those
they have new sidewalks too.
yeah. So Westwood as well by Route 50 there, and
Okay, I'm just going to say,
Yeah.
that's good. Thank
Okay.
you. I will just say that most Westwood is also covered by Noblestown Road, which is a state road, and most of the sidewalks in most of those areas are good. But one of the things we do try to, in our area, we're trying to get a trail open so that we can get some more bike and pedestrian safe passages off of Noblestown Road, because it is so difficult to navigate for either, people on bikes or walking. And for our area, I just want to, one of my concerns is when we do city planning, you have a real say in what happens in the future in the city of Pittsburgh. So for me, one of the things I worry about is we have a lot of need for market rate housing in our district. I mean, every study has always said that we have affordability. We have an overabundance of affordability in the West End. So if anybody's looking for a house, we have an overabundance in the West End. But we need some market rate housing. Would you look at that differently? Would you look at every area differently, or would you just have one plan for the city and that's it?
No, for sure. Every part of the city has different needs. The West End is a more stable area of the city.
Yeah.
Home prices are generally in the 100,000s range.
Which is still like shocking to us,
Yeah.
to be honest with you.
So yeah, the strategies there are definitely going to be different from somewhere in like East Liberty, for example.
Right. Okay. I just want to make sure that you'd be open to whatever an area needs in particular, not just one plan
For sure.
for every neighborhood. Thank you. And I'll let the clerk know when we're going to put the all the appointments today forward, but not yet, but I'll let you know. Thank you. That's it for me. There's nobody else, right?
I'm good.
So you're done. Thank you.
Thank
We're
you.
going to start
Thanks,
with our
everyone.
next interview. And our next interview is Michelle Miller-Beener. Madam Clerk, do you want to read a little bit about what it's for? Is Michelle here?
She's not here.
She's not here?
Mm-mm.
And she's not on for the interview?
She's supposed to be.
She's not online?
No.
Okay, well, that won't be moving forward. So,
Okay.
all right. So, the next interview is, who else do we have, Madam Clerk?
Dalen Davis.
Yeah, we have Dalen Davis. Is that the only other one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Dalen. You're up.
Bill number 2085, resolution appointing Dalen Davis as a member of the Citizen Police Review Board with the term to expire October 31st, 2027.
Hi. And I'll just give you the little bit of the background here. Council members, I'll give you a few minutes to say what you think you'll bring to the table serving on this, on the CPRB. And then we'll let council members will ask questions, and you wait until they ask, and then you can answer. And if they don't ask, you're not supposed to interject anything. But at the end of the interview, if you have something to say, just let me know, and I'll let you have that time to add any clarity or anything that you might need. Okay? Okay. So with that said, do you want to give us a little synopsis about yourself and why you think you'd be a good candidate for the CPRB?
Well, my name's Dalen Davis. I currently live in the Allentown neighborhood of the city of Pittsburgh.
my district.
In the Hilltop neighborhood. I currently serve as the president of the NAACP Pittsburgh branch. I know many of the city councilors here at this table. I think that I'm a good fit. I think the mayor, a reason why he chose me to sit on this commission is because the NAACP has a long history of working with the city of Pittsburgh, specifically with the Citizens Police Review Board, and handling complaints and making sure that citizens of the city of Pittsburgh are served well when investigating those complaints.
Thank you. Is that it?
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Warwick, do you have any questions?
Yeah, sure. So thank you for agreeing to serve and, coming here today. So, yeah, I guess I'll ask, yeah, so it's a balance, right, on the Citizens Police Review Board between evaluating complaints from residents, but then also the just sort of the take on the situation from the officers themselves, and how do you see that balance playing out on the review board, like for yourself, in being able to maintain the objectivity sometimes in cases that are not necessarily so, like sometimes cases are very clear cut, I assume, right? And sometimes they aren't. So I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, I always weigh the facts from both sides. Obviously, the initial complaint, may be misconstrued or have some drastic outbursts. Like we can take body camera footage or videos that we see in the public eye, may have a misinterpretation of the situation that may have occurred. But on this review board, it'd be my job to make sure that I'm impartial by making sure that all facts are being weighed, what's being publicly stated as well as what's being stated behind closed doors.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned body camera footage. So and this is just something that I'm just interested in folks' thoughts, and I don't actually know if I could sort of see both sides. But in this day and age of cameras, right, everything's on a camera. Everybody's got a camera in their pocket. Everything's being filmed. But very rarely do we actually see the body as the public see the body camera footage that the officers are recording. What are your thoughts? It seems to me sometimes that would help clarify things, right? If we could see all the footage instead of just, as the public. I don't know. And I don't know the legalities behind actually doing that, but I'd be curious about your thoughts.
Well, I think it's, so one, the thought process is understanding the process of those body camera worn footage, especially how they are released. But also when you're doing investigations into those complaints, again, having both sides, because when you just see one side, it has an unintended bias view, but you don't know all the facts.
Mm-hmm.
You have the reactionary effect. But I think having that better understanding through this process, working with the Citizens Police Review Board, would be beneficial.
And then I'm just trying to think if I have any other last questions. I guess also I'm curious your thoughts on sort of restorative practice. So, and I think a lot of times, especially, and I've heard this in reports where, there'll be complaints fully justified of where it's not necessarily physical violence or anything like that, but just sort of like a matter of respectful conduct towards citizens, where the the repercussion would not be anything close to dismissal of an officer or anything, like nothing on that level. But what your thoughts are on ways that we could sort of restorative practices for improving that kind of the like just sort of relations on, so that we don't have as many cases of just sort of situations where a police officer, where a citizen is frustrated and then a police officer gets frustrated and then it becomes sort of impolite. I'll use to put it mildly. Go ahead.
I think I think if we all remember that we are all human at the end of the day, our police force will go through changes, improvement, but at the end of the day, there's a human being behind the badge. There's a human being out there in our neighborhoods. At the end of the day, they chose to protect and serve the citizens of Pittsburgh. I think if we can find ways and pathways that come up with mediation between that officer and the citizen, I think it goes a long way in helping improve those relationships. I would say, Zone 3, where I come from, those officers up there have a very good relationship with their neighbors and residents, me included, where we can go to them for resources or help, and they'll help us out. If we could, use that model across the city of Pittsburgh, I think we'll be in a good place.
And I guess just on a last note, so we have a new chief who has a philosophy of, this sort of, reimagining the way that we police our citizens. I believe our chief is fully on board with that. I'm curious your thought. I mean, I know he hasn't been in the role particularly long, but if there are any changes that you've noticed.
I mean, Chief Scarrato is definitely making some major changes. I think the fruit of that labor of changes is yet to be seen, but I know that he has an open and willingness to sit at any table to have any hard discussions in relations to policy or changes that he wishes to do to his police bureau.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that's all for me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I just have same questions I ask him. I'm going to ask everyone. Do you have any conflicts that may prevent you from making any unbiased decisions, or anything that we should be aware of?
No.
Okay. And so part of my concern is, I'll be honest, is the confidentiality and how you have to maintain that. When there are people that, I know that you're really close to people that run other organizations also working with police. How do you not share that information, with friends or anything? Because I'll be honest, there's some people I would have a difficult time not sharing if I was on that board. I would want to tell people stuff. How do you do that? How do you maintain that confidentiality? That's all.
So, as an example, I also sit on the City of Pittsburgh Democratic Party Executive Committee. As you know, the NAACP is a bipartisan organization, so there are some conversations that do take place that I may necessarily not be able to share with my counterparts at the NAACP because it's party affiliate, party matters. So I do wear multiple hats with the unintended consequences of making sure that I separate the two. Well, now would be three if I'm confirmed for this.
Okay.
But I see no conflict.
You have no conflict. Okay. And if there's something, would you abstain, or something that you had, something you advocated for, and now it's before CPRB? What would you do?
I would work with Beth Pittenger, the executive director, as is outlined in the policies within the city of Pittsburgh. If there's a conflict of interest with the affected board member, that she would help me through that process, or to abstain from any decisions that would be made.
I'll be honest with you. I go to her sometimes now where I never thought I would ever go to Beth Pittenger. When I first started, I'm like, oh, no way. But now I realize after all these years, she is probably the most knowledgeable person in this area. I mean, for all sides, she gives you the whole scenarios, and I learned to respect a lot of what she can bring to the table. So I will say that. So that was a great answer, I think, because I now too also go to Beth Pittenger, which nobody would believe would ever happen. So
I do want to say, since starting my role as the president of the NAACP, and we are rebuilding our chapter here in Pittsburgh, Beth has been a valuable asset, community member, in helping with that relationship.
And I think you both may now live in my district, because I now have part of Allentown. I'm not sure where you live, and I know her house is in my district now. But I knew it was when I was giving her a hard time too, so it didn't matter to me. Okay, she will tell you it doesn't matter, not to me. But okay, that's it for me. I will. The Madam Clerk will let you know when we put it up for the vote. I think we have one more interview or two more interviews we're trying to get through, and we'll put them all together. Okay.
Right, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for your willingness to serve. That exhausts our interviews for today. We're supposed to have 4 today, but we had 2. So we'll save those for another day. Okay. All right. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Yeah, so moved.
Thank you. Meeting's adjourned.